and 1.
Welcome. This is Dr. Townsend Live. I'm John Townsend, and we're going to be here for a whole hour, as we are as many Wednesdays at 2 o'clock Pacific time as we can manage, and I hope that's a lot this year. This is a time where you call in and you either text in, which is great, and I'll answer your question on text, or it'll be something where I really love is where you come on, your face isn't on there, but to keep your privacy, but your voice is on there, and that's a little more personal, and we get a better experience. But we'll take the text if that's what you have. And what we do is we talk about, guess what? Life, relationships, how life's going, how things are going emotionally, marriage, parenting, parents, dating, family relationships, business relationships, leadership, finding our potential, those sorts of things. And we try to give an answer that means something that's got some gravitas to it, so that you feel like, okay, I've been understood and I heard something that I didn't know before. I mean, why would you want to be on a show and go to the trouble of asking questions? Somebody tell you, well, work out more. Well, we all need to work out. So, we'll try to do a little more than that. And we love our community, and people are so supportive of all the venues that we're on, all the channels we're on. So we hope it's going to be a good time for you, either if as a participant, which we hope you are a participant if there's time, or just somebody who's there and learning, and that's always good too. And our producer Stacy is making the magic happen, and I want to bring her in. Stacy, hi.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dr. Townsend Live Show. We're so glad that you're here today. I see a couple of you have already entered the waiting room. If you do not have the number to call into the show and speak to John today, here it is if you want to grab some paper and a pen. That number is 1-877-853-5257. Again, it is 1-877-853-5257. And once you dial that number, you're going to need a meeting ID code to enter the waiting room. And the ID code is 876-5437-2012. Again, 876-5437-2012. And when you enter the waiting room, go ahead and disable your camera while you're there, because this is a call-in show. For privacy purposes, we want to hear you, but we don't want the world to see your video. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started.
Sounds good. Now, Stacy, should I blab, or is somebody here? I never know what to do at the beginning. I don't mean blab, I mean share, but anyway.
You have your first caller. So caller, you are live on the Dr. Townsend Live Show. Go ahead and tell us your first name only and where you're calling from. Caller, are you with us?
Hi, this is...
Oh, there you are.
Hello,
yep.
Can you hear me? Hi, yes. My name is Mary, and I am from just outside of Chicago. And I have a question regarding like the flight response in a relationship. I've been dating an individual. He's never been married before. And anytime I bring up, going deeper in terms of connections in a relationship, he pretty much shuts down and can't talk about any emotional things from his past. And I don't know how to, I'm pretty much thinking this is the end, just because he won't express or talk about what's going on in his past that has created this wall or boundary that he has set up.
Well, that's sad. I mean, you like the guy, right? He's worth the time to go deeper with, right?
Yes.
Okay. Mary, sometimes when there's a disconnect in a conversation, one person's trying to really connect, the other person's, like you said, the flight response. Sometimes we have to have a talk about the talk. Now, there's the talk, which is, well, what everybody calls it is the DTR talk. Let's define the relationship. That's the DTR aspect. And somebody will, get escalated or shut down or stonewalled or whatever. And then it's time not to talk about the DTR, define a relationship. It's time to talk about what just happened. Have you tried that?
I have.
What happened?
And he will say, I don't want to talk about it, or I'll come back to it, or we'll talk about it later. And then I just get generalities, really. Like, oh, I've told you more than I've told anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have issues in my past. You don't have to remind me.
Mm-hmm.
We had a conversation last Friday, and he just said that he had a bad night. He, was going through some paperwork from his past. And I just said, when your past is your focus and it affects you, it affects us. And he got upset and said, I don't want to talk about this, and left. And I haven't heard from him since.
That's actually pretty painful, Mary. How are you doing with that?
It's really sad. I've dated him for the last 2 years, and I've respected his boundaries in terms of, what he was originally, what he was willing to emotionally share on different levels. And I just think that he's pushed my boundaries, and I now have to just stand firm with mine and realize that as much as I try to give him the tools and the opportunities to talk or to go deeper, he just isn't willing to do so.
Okay. Now you said that he has pushed your boundaries. How has he pushed your boundaries?
Just because I have said, I don't, if you're to lead me on with stuff, oh, I'm going to do this, or we'll get together and do this. And I'll say, okay. And I just kind of fall back in where I say, you know what, until you have a plan on what our relationship looks like, I need to have some space and some time away from you, where I'm not spending my weekends with you, where I'm not with you all the time.
All right. Okay. Yeah, this is difficult. And the fact that you've had conversations about this and nothing's changing could mean, I'm not real big on, give up quickly, but let's do a little role play, we can get a feel for a way you can relate to him, to see what the possibilities are. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll call him Ralph. All right.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be the skilled Mary who's trying to handle this a different way. And this is a talk about the relationship. So when you have a talk like this, Mary, this is not like while you guys are ice skating or watching TV or having a killer dinner or anything. This is like face to face, no distractions, because otherwise there are things that can divert off that. So this is a meeting that we are having. All righty.
Okay.
Okay. Hey. Hey, Ralph. Hey.
Hi. How are you?
Good. Thanks for meeting us today, because I know that we're both busy and that sort of thing, and I know that it shows that our relationship has value to you. So I appreciate this spending the time that we're going to talk about.
I'm here to listen.
Well, I hope it's going to be here to listen and here to talk too. We can have both, I think. I don't want to go into everything having to do with this sort of dance that we're into, where I'm asking for more emotion in the past, and it feels like for you that that's just not something you're interested in. I'd like to see if we can figure out how we can both be happy in the relationship, because I do believe great relationships are based on really knowing each other. But I know that I don't know, it's a negative thing when I try that. So first of all, I want to understand. So I know you're here to listen, but I'm here to listen too. What is it that happens when, like a few days ago when you said you were upset, some things happened, they reminded you of your past, and I really felt compassion. I wanted to know more about it. Then you said you didn't want to talk about it. So when I show interest, in what's going on and your insights, when I show interest, especially when you're upset, What's it like for you? It doesn't sound like it's very pleasant for you when I want to know your insides. Help me understand that, Ralph.
That's a good approach.
Mary, yeah,
and
don't do you're doing the analysis right now because you're getting it, but I want you to stay in character here.
Okay.
Whatever he would say to that.
Say I don't mean to upset you. What else does he say? I have been hurt by so many people in my past. I've got to be very careful. I take things slow. I don't want to be hurt again.
I totally resonate with that. And thank you for telling me that. I thought that's a really vulnerable thing for you to say. What's your plan about that? I mean, it's sort of like if you came to me and you had a gunshot wound and I said, you're bleeding. And you said, I know, I've been shot and it's awful. And I said, well, are you going to get it taped up? You're going to the hospital? No, I just don't want somebody to shoot me again. I feel like you got a wound. What's your plan for not being wounded? Because a gunshot wound is to be attended to and the infection taken out and all that. And you've really been hurt and it affects you. It affects your life with me or without me. What's your plan to deal with that? I feel bad, but I want to know what your approach is.
Time. I think the more time we spend together, things will get better.
You mean it'll feel safer, and maybe since trusting others didn't work, maybe if I'm a safe person enough that you'll kind of be able to talk about your inner life more because time has shown that I'm a safe person. Is that kind of the thinking, Ralph?
Yes.
Okay, we're starting year 3 of our relationship, right?
Yes, and I forgot to mention I had, known him years ago.
Are you Ralph or Mary?
Oh, okay, Ralph. Yes.
Stay
yes,
Ralph. I want all Ralph all day. So it's time. Time is the healer, and I do believe time does a lot. So now we're on year 3, right, Ralph?
Yes.
Okay. How long do you want me to be patient?
I'm not sure how much time it's going to take. I'm trying.
Oh, I didn't know you were trying. What are you doing? I didn't know what the trying plan was. Tell me the behaviors.
I have a plan and I know what I have to do and I know the issues I have. I just don't need to be reminded of them.
Okay. Do you mind telling me the plan? I'd love to be thinking about you and praying for you and being your biggest cheerleader.
I think what he tells me. I can't give you details of the plan.
Okay, yeah, just broad base is fine. Just the big, the 20,000 foot view is fine. I'm just interested and happy. I didn't know there was a plan.
Just setting up I know all the stuff that I have to address. Really, my health has been priority. I exercise. I'm taking care of all of my medical appointments.
Yeah.
And then I'm, just wrapping up stuff at my house and figuring out what else I have to do here because I don't know if I'm going to stay here or sell my house or buy something else. I've got family issues that I want to deal with. So I'm just working through everything one at a time.
Yeah, I get that. And that's complicated. I would love to support you in that. Here's one thing that's kind of a head scratcher for me, Ralph. I get it. It sounds so important and real and significant that you want to get, the financials and the family stuff and the work stuff and your health stuff. I mean, those are huge issues. Here's my concern, or here's my confusion. If you told me that you had a broken leg and I said, what are you going to do about it? And you said, I'm going to start taking supplements, I'd be confused because one is for one thing and one's for another. And all those things you mentioned have nothing to do with a past where trust has been broken. You have a broken heart, a broken trust muscle, whatever we want to call it. You can't trust others. And getting more organized and getting your money and getting healthy really has some, but a very minority, little to do with fixing trust, Ralph. They're not really, it's apples and oranges. See my confusion?
Yes, I do.
So you're saying you don't really have a plan to fix the broken trust muscle then. You got a plan for get your life together and get more peace, but there is no plan to be able to trust so you can open up to me more. Am I fair in saying that?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about that?
Not sure how to go about it. Not sure. Too painful to look at it. Not sure if I have the tools to do it.
Thank you. That was very helpful to me to hear. Don't know about it. I don't know how to go about it. Don't have the tools and think about the pain. I get that. Do you mind if I make a suggestion?
Please do.
Okay, I don't want to be the naggy Mary. I'm not going to be the reminder monster. It's just a thought I had. Okay, is that okay?
Yes.
Well, when we don't have tools for something that's painful, we go where the tools are. And you've been really hurt significantly. So I would love to, and think it'd be very beneficial for us to go to couples counseling for maybe, I don't know, 10 sessions and check each other out and talk to a pro who deals with people who have really bad trauma and lack of tools in their past, and helps the couples to begin to navigate those. I would spend the time with you. You're worth it to me, because otherwise we're just talking about me feeling frustrated, and then I run you away, and then you go get your act together and get healthy, and you come back and you still don't have any trust, and here I am chasing you. It's really sucks. Why don't we go together, and I'm sure I've got stuff to work on too, and help you with that trust from the past with a pro who has hours and thousands of hours in this.
Sounds good.
Good. Okay, Mary, you did a great job of kind of channeling his personality. And I need to know, what is one takeaway from our little role play that you can use to start to get some hope with Ralph? Just one thing.
I'd like the tools. You know, you did the analogy of the broken leg. What are the tools? It's just really going back, rephrasing what he says, and then going back and saying, what are your tools? What is the plan?
Yeah.
And then just saying, if he can't come back with it, is just the offer of couples counseling and see what he says.
Right. And then if he says, I don't want it, I'm too scared, then I would say, well, it's beyond both. I can't fix it. And I'm not your shrink, and you can't fix it. And it's really huge. Will you consider it? And then maybe he takes a week and considers it. And after that, if I were you, Mary, I would either say, Ralph, I've adjusted my expectations, and I love everything else about you because you like mountain hiking and you love, to go listen to classic rock, and I love going to church with you, and I can live without emotional contact. And then you pursue it. Or you go, I need more than that, and I'm going to go date other people, but call me if you decide to get help. That's the path I would take.
Great. Thank you very much. That helps. I've had that in the back of my head, and I really appreciate the reinforcement from you.
Yeah, I think you were kind of ready to hear something like that. So well done, Mary. Thanks for calling.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, folks, it is such a big deal when you're in a relationship and the other person sees you as the problem. And one of the things you have to learn in conversations is maybe you are, but if you can tell there's some pattern in them, to help them in a vulnerable way see that maybe something's broken and they can take responsibility to fix it. You're not a therapist. You can't fix it, but they can go there's some problems that a couple can have that don't need therapy. When you got something like Ralph, you've got to help them see this won't get better no matter how many gyms you go to and how many supplements you take. So well done, Mary. Okay, who's up?
Okay, caller, you are live on the Dr. Townsend live show. Go ahead and tell us your first name and where you're calling from.
Hello, Dr. Townsend. Kathy, calling from Columbus, Ohio. A Townsend graduate. Am I allowed to say that?
You are. What? But you got to tell me what program were you in when you graduated?
Oh my goodness, executive coaching and consulting. It's been life-changing. So thank you very much. Very much.
You're welcome. Glad to have somebody in the family here.
Yeah. Despite it was all part of the healing, and I'm just have to jump on with Mary. I just want to give her some hope. I have a question to follow this, but your story sounded so familiar of 28 years of marriage, and all of his advice is very valid, and accepting the reality is all part of it. So asking the right questions to get to the truth. I just encourage you to continue to do that. Because I had to make a tough decision, and after 28 years, and I have to say, through my journey of healing with Dr. Townsend and Henry Cloud, all their books, can't read enough of them, and many other resources, I am now engaged to a man that I would have never chosen based on my frame of reference. And I'm still healing and recovering based on the fallout, right, of making that choice. So my daughter, I think we've talked about this before, is still 26 years old, Christian counselor, actually living with my husband, and does not want a relationship with me. So it breaks my heart, and I have to talk about a muscle, work that muscle of boundaries, and it still hurts. You can hear it in my voice. So my question is, because you talked about revenge, what do you do when you're on the other side of it? What do you do when, besides trying to keep that muscle strong, I'm just trying to figure out strategies to reach her, because I feel like she's in a very manipulative, like throw out all those things like, the devaluing and flying monkeys and all those terms I've learned. But I would love some tools, as we talk about tools, to try to reach her.
Sure. I'm really sorry, Kathy. I mean, there's not a lot of pains worse than a child you're trying to reach out to that hates you and is after you in some way. And this is hard. What is it that she purportedly has against you in the first place? What's the substance? What is her argument for the substance?
Well, that is the most crazy thing, when someone will not tell you. I lived with it for 28 years, thought I was a mind reader. You can love through all of the principles that we are taught in Christianity. I do not know. She will not tell me. So I have to mind read, and that was modeled.
Modeled by your husband, your ex?
Yes.
All right.
And
when
so
did you notice,
if
she's 26 now, when did you notice the disconnect that she never came back from? Was it like when she was 3 or 12 or last year? When did you notice this?
Well, you are a therapist. She was probably in utero and trauma because our marriage wasn't healthy then. But I have 2 older sons that are great. One's going to be a pastor. And the other one is, they're both married so I have 4 grandkids, blessing. But it was kind of through the dysfunction of the marriage, untethering. 2013, he sent collaborative divorce. This stuff was behind the scenes. So I was the one acting out. When you have this, manipulative, as far as I'm concerned, covert, very passive. And so she's observing all this, because I'm wanted to get the truth out there. We went to Christian counseling anyway. So she, as a mother-daughter relationship, we Butted heads,
That
especially
puts her
because she was always put.
as a teenager. Then 2013 was 10 years ago. She's 26. So she
Yes,
was a
yes,
teen
yes,
when you
yes,
started seeing the change in her attitude towards you.
yes. And part of it was pushing back, like, the teen things, it's normal, right?
Hmm.
And then we had a relationship, the dissolution, we filed for divorce. They don't know that, but we got it back to dissolution, was in 2017 finally.
Hmm.
She was finishing up college, so she was
Hmm.
living on campus, then went to Africa, came back, and then, she was buttercup. She was always first. So, she moved in with him for 2.5 years. We were fine. It was in COVID, 2020. We went to do a Thanksgiving Zoom and she didn't get on. So I'm hearing from the daughter-in-law that she doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want to be involved with
Hmm.
me. And then I literally, this is a God incident, went to a Christian counselor, had my first session, prayed, run into her Home Goods, and finally get it from her. And she goes, and I said, I don't know. Crying in the aisle of Home Goods. Ask if it's like she's not even my daughter. So
Okay.
so I've abided
I've
by
got
that.
I've got enough history now. I want to get to help solve the
Okay.
problem. So
Okay.
she's tuned you out. You have no clue why. You think it might have been because things were so crazy and your ex was pretty manipulative and she may have kind of morphed that part. But you've got no data now. And so there is no contact, Kathy?
No, I saw her at my granddaughter's birthday and asked if I could hug her, and she said no.
All right. And how long has it been total wipeout? No contact. Has it been seconds, days, weeks, months, years? No contact.
It has been, I would say, from November 2020.
Couple of years. All right. All right. Then you're right. This is a stance she's taking. And for whatever reason, there's a dark reason, there's a not so dark reason. The not so dark reason is something's happening she doesn't feel safe to say, and she would like to if that ever changes. The dark reason is she wants to hurt you, and that's why you saw the video I made on revenge, and it resonated somehow. So this is passive revenge. The active revenge is when they're calling and they're stalking and they're gaslighting and they're coming at us and they're doing active things to make us feel bad and hurt us because they feel good from hurting us. You have passive revenge. You're being totally stonewalled. There is nothing because for some reason she needs to protect herself or she knows that that's going to frustrate you because you're relational. Who knows? But this is passive revenge. So I tell people to do a couple of things. One is to, and I talk about this fairly frequently on the program, is to write or email or whatever you do, however we get things to people, text them, who knows? And we just say, I would like a chance to hear you out, to see how I've hurt you and what your experience is. And I will bring my piece of paper and my pen and I will just listen, or we can do it on Zoom. And you tell me everything I've done that's hurt you, and I will not interrupt. I will not edit. I will not say, oh, you got that wrong. I won't say, well, that was your dad. I won't say anything except for let me understand what about this. I'll just be getting information. I'm going to take as many notes as it takes. You can take a couple of hours if you need. It's fine. And then I'm going to go away, think about these things, think what I need to change, whatever is true, I will change. And then I want another meeting so I can tell you the homework I did to see if that helps at all with hearing you out. It's what I call the day in court. You give your daughter her day in court and you don't edit at all. Now, let's suppose you do that and she doesn't answer and it's still crickets. Then what we have is no longer what we call an intrapersonal issue. Now we have an internal issue. Interpersonal means it's me and daughter and going back and forth. Now it's just me. It's internal. So how do I deal with my hurt? And the best way we deal with hurt when somebody does passive revenge is we identify what it is we needed from them. Love, respect, collaboration, attachment, trust, affirmation, or whatever. And you remember the relational nutrients, the 22 relational nutrients. You might pick out 3 or 4 of those, and those would feel so good if my daughter would do them. You get those, you identify those, and we do what psychologists call de-investing. We take those things we desperately so much need from that person, and we invest them into some other people that are loving and kind and get it, and they will provide those for us. And as we de-invest, I'm not going to be wanting her to do those things anymore. I'm going to get these from other people. And by the way, she was my first choice for those. This is the hard part, Kathy. She was my first choice for, who knows, being a friend as an adult child and going through memories together. I can't get the exact same thing, but I can get the basics from other people. And when I do that, the pain begins to leave, and then I can begin to successfully grieve the past. We really can't grieve well until we're reconnected in these lost parts that we can't get from that person, until we get them from other people, and our heart goes, all right, you're not going to die. You're not going to starve. You're getting good things. It's not your first choice, but it's good. And then you can begin to let go and not enjoy it. But I'm telling you, it takes the pain from an 11 to a 4 or a 3 over time. That's where I go with it, Kathy. And best to you. I hope this works for you.
Thank you. And I agree. And I'm just not letting it have the power and control. So you're right.
You got it. That's it.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
Kathy.
you.
Take care. So tough, guys, when somebody that you legitimately, I mean, you might not have been perfect. None of us are perfect, but when you get stonewalled, stonewall is just a mean thing. And I mean, sometimes people stonewall because the other person's, crazy or toxic or whatever. But if you're trying to be a nice person, you get stonewalled. It's just mean to do. And if it hurts, it hurts. It's the real thing. I am validating that the pain is basically because they're important to you. If somebody's not important to you, they really can't hurt you. But if it's your child, your spouse, somebody you're dating, somebody in the family, and they act like that, don't beat yourself up and say, well, it shouldn't matter. It should matter. It hurts. But replace whatever you were needing from them and get it somewhere else. By the way, before we get the next call, I want to tell you, she mentioned that she is one of our alum. And you might say, alum of what? She asked. Well, the Townsend Institute of Leadership and Counseling, based at Concordia University, California, or Irvine, California, is basically a fully accredited, fully online graduate degree program. We have 3 programs. You can get a master's or a doctorate or a certificate in counseling if you want to be a healer, if this is your time to be a healer, or you can get a master's or a certificate in executive coaching consulting if you want to help people develop, if you want to have organizations develop, or you can get a master's or certificate in organizational leadership where you can actually run a division, run a company, be in the corporate world, have your own entrepreneurial group, family company, or you could have a ministry. But we've got tons and tons of tools for people, and our professors are top notch, and we're online, so we're all over the world. And people are looking at this as an opportunity. If this is your time, whether you're 25 or 75 to go, I want a new way of relating to the world in business or in career fulfillment. Check this out. Our next group of people that are coming in, our next batch of students is going to be in about 3 weeks, and then we don't allow people back in until August. So if you're interested, give us a call. The information that Stacy gave, and our nice enrollment people talk to you about what the possibilities are. But people are getting great jobs, feeling like they learned a lot of good material. They feel fully equipped. And at the upcoming conference we've got, if you like business at all, Patrick Lencioni, Pat's a dear friend, and he is the guy who is the #1 organizational health guy in the world. He wrote 5 Dysfunctions, and he wrote Working Genius. He's going to be speaking to our students, and we're so excited about it happening. So we've got top shelf people. So this is the time for you to go, hey, I'm ready for my business or ministry or counseling 2.0 or 3.0. Give us a shot. All right. Okay, Stacy.
Okay. Yes, I will drop the link down in the comments, and the next live info session is February 13th.
Might be late because isn't the kickoff or is it kickoff in late February? Maybe it's late February.
Late February.
Oh, you got a little bit of time. Yeah, February 3rd.
Yes.
I don't know. You might have just called somebody before February 10th because they get full really fast. Anyway,
Yes, they do.
That's not my pay grade.
Okay. John, your next question comes from Maria over on your Instagram page. And she said something you shared earlier this week struck a nerve with me. And it is about the boundaries, and a good test of a relationship being how a person accepts your no. That love respects your no and control does not. And her question is, what if you are asking for something good and maybe even necessary? Ergo, one partner asks the other if they can talk about an issue in the relationship, and the other says no because they do not see it as an issue.
So let me understand. This is Maria, right?
Yes.
So Maria, you're saying that what I said about when a person cares about you, they'll accept your no and go, okay, you can choose. But now you're saying, as you think about that, you've got somebody that you want something from, a spouse or whatever, and they're saying no to you, and I guess what you're saying is, am I supposed to accept that and like be okay with it when I really need it from them? I think that's your question. This is the whole thing about answering a text and making sure you got it, because we cannot go back and forth, but we're going to get this. Let me kind of give you the brief answer and then sort of the steps answer, Maria. Number one, yes. The bad news is yes. We just don't have a right to say, you must give me this. I will force you to give me this. Suppose the thing is something you need. Maybe you need, I don't know, maybe you need financial stability, and the other person is not stable and spends all his money on the racetrack or whatever. And you really need to talk about this. And he says, I will not talk about this. You can't say, I'm going to make you because you have to, I need this. Well, no, you have to accept him. You know why? Because that's just the reality of autonomy, that everybody has a choice. I mean, God even respects our no. If you look at the book of Joshua, chapter 24, I think it is, where he says, choose you this day whom you're going to serve. Are you going to serve the Lord, or are you going to serve not the Lord? And God says all the way through the Bible, you can choose to pick me or not. He never says you have to pick me. Now, I don't want you to be now, oh my gosh, it's hopeless. He's financially irresponsible and I'm in trouble and the kids are in trouble. No. Boundaries respect the choice, but here's the other piece of it. They also establish limits and consequences. So the answer is not, well, you have to do what I say because I need this. Then you say, I respect it. I accept your boundaries. And because I've got to take care of me, and I've got to take care of whoever, let's just keep it simple. I've got to take care of me. I need these things. So the following, if you really don't want to do this and you don't think you should and all that, then I'm going to have to get these things met somewhere else. So I'm just making stuff up now because I don't know you, Maria. I'm going to go see a financial counselor and talk about me and you and how I can, get things stable. If you're spending all our money, I'm going to go see an attorney and talk about how to get some kind of help before you put us into poverty. I'm going to start reading books on this need that I have and how I can get it met. And by the way, if it's an emotional need, not a financial need, and you have no interest in me in this important emotion or emotional need I have, I might be spending more time away from you with healthy, godly, safe friends, pro-marriage friends, because you're not interested. So maybe 3 or 4 nights a week, while you're not relating to me and just watching the tube, I'll be getting my tummy filled. I'd love for you to do it your first choice, but I can't. However, the context, Maria, yes, we do respect boundaries. We don't cross their boundaries unless it's a 3-year-old running in traffic. You're going to grab your 3-year-old, right? But otherwise, you don't do that. But you set up healthy consequences limited. Read the book Boundaries. It's got a lot in there about maintaining choice because they have to have their autonomy, but make sure you've made consequences. And the consequences are A, so that you're safe and getting your needs met so you can function right. But B, it also is a little how do I say it? It's a little indicator for the other person of what it's like for them to be selfish, self-centered, irresponsible, whatever, because there should be a consequence for that. I mean, if your 3-year-old is bunking your 1-year-old in the head, you don't say, Jimmy, stop that, but here's a cookie. Jimmy's got to know he's going to be in timeout. So you've got to do a little timeout with the person if they refuse to do a good thing that you need, but you never force them. Okay, Maria, good question.
All right. John, your next question comes from someone that's on the Facebook Live watching right now. Her name is Mary, and she says, this is really good. I needed to hear all of this. I have an estranged daughter-in-law, no responses from her at all. We talked to my son a little bit, but I like that we replace what we needed from them. We grieve it and then get the nutritional and relational elements we need from some other place, right?
Actually, it's the other way around.
Yeah, I think that's what her question is we, so if you can expand on that for her.
Well, did I interrupt you? Did you not finish the rest of the question? Because I kind of started.
I think that's her full
started.
question. She's saying we grieve it and get the nutritional, relational elements we need from some other place, right? Like, so you're saying other way around.
Well, she's got 95% of it. Oh, and by the way, what an interesting thing. Our first caller is Mary. Our third caller is Maria. Our fourth caller is Mary. So what about Mary? Great movie. Anyway, yeah, you got most of it right. Now, the only thing I would tweak a bit on that, Mary, is to say, yeah, you got to grieve, but if you're grieving in a vacuum, it takes a lot longer to grieve. You've got no comfort to go into. So I always tell people they kind of happen at the same time, but when you're letting someone go, and that's just a conscious choice to say, I'm accepting that my estranged daughter-in-law, she doesn't like me, and I don't know when she will like me, and I've tried everything and she just refuses to care about me. I'm really sad. I'm gonna go in a grief process, but go to relationalnutrients.com. It's a system I have of 22 things, like instead of like calcium and iron and all these other things that we need in our body, there's 22 things we need, like acceptance, respect, support, comfort. So you can kind of go, oh, that one I need from her, or that one, I've been wanting, I've been waiting, I've been on hold waiting for this for her. It's always 3 or 4 things that really matter. It's free. You can just download it and keep it and all that. And then you find people who have those attributes. They're warm and they're truthful and they're trustworthy and they see you as a good person and you connect with them. And so while you're letting her go, I always tell people, get the support before you start the grief, because I believe that the way you look at the grief process, when you look at neurology and all this, it's a relational thing. And people want to grieve in the privacy of their home, and you can. But I honestly believe that when we grieve all by ourselves and we never open up to anybody because we don't want to bother anybody, it's just you and me and it's just me and God and all that. I get that. But I think it takes about twice as long to finish a grief process as it does when we do it with a few people that care about us, where we can cry with them and we can like let them know what mattered to us and be with them when they're sad. And they're our 3 a.m. friends. I'm an efficiency guy. I don't have a lot of extra time. I don't want to do my grief half time, which means more people. So that's the only thing I would change a bit on that, Mary. Answer basically yes, but start looking for those people. It will accelerate the successful grief process. So your brain gets straight. You're not worried. Then you don't have like concentration problems and mood problems and energy problems and creativity problems. You get your focus back. You get your brain back when you finish the grief process. So it accelerates it, and it also makes it of better quality, I believe. I don't believe that you have to grieve something forever and ever and ever and never get past it. Now, there are big things to grieve, and they take time. Sometimes they take a little time, a long time, but I believe that the grief process was designed to resolve. Do we ever miss that person? Certainly, but that's not a grief process. That's the difference between a scar and a wound. Grief allows a loss to be a wound. I mean, when I was 5, I did some boneheaded things at my cousin's house in Goldsboro, North Carolina. I fell down some steps and broke my elbow. I was out of control. And so the doctor put my elbow back together, but I've had this thing for all my life and I can touch it and the skin's kind of, still sensitive, but it's not a wound. It's a scar. Give me scars any day. Grief is the way that you can go. I did this stuff for a few months or a year and now I miss her. It's kind of a tender spot, but I can move on. I've got energy. I've got hope. I've got vision for tomorrow. I've got great friends. I love what's going on. Not, where's she going? I can't get up in the morning. My day is cloudy. I don't have energy. I feel unloved. We do that for a while. That's the grief process, but don't let that dictate your entire life. Jump in the process. It has an end. It is not forever.
Okay, John, you have another question from Tim that's over on your Twitter page. Before I read
I'm sorry, Stacey. I'm only taking calls from people named Mary from now on today. So,
okay.
Sorry, Tim. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Tim.
I do want to go ahead and give the number one more time, guys. We've got about 15 minutes left. If you want to call in and ask Dr. Townsend your question today on the show, it's 1-877-853-5257. Again, it's 877-853-5257. And then use meeting ID code 876-5437-2012. Again, 876-5437-2012. You'll use that meeting ID code to get into the waiting room. Okay, Tim's question over on Twitter says, hi, John, your books helped me tremendously. I'm just needing a little bit of clarity around the video and e-blast that went out this morning about revenge. You talked about that it is a normal feeling for us to have revenge, but that it keeps you connected and dependent on the other person. I am estranged from my wife. We've been separated for 3 years. She is, in fact, having an affair. I do not wish to have a divorce, but she says that she doesn't think there's any way that we could ever come back together unless I would be willing to consider an open marriage. While I don't want to take revenge out on her myself, I do feel revengeful inside. And I'm just trying to figure out what my next steps would be. How can I do that without allowing the revenge to take me over?
The key word there, Tim, is inside. You just started the first step to the path that will help you with this. As you said, I'm feeling mad for you. I felt a little bit protective when you talked about, she's having this affair, wants open marriage, and it's just bad stuff. It's just dark stuff. And I felt a bit protective over my buddy Tim. And you said, and so I had these feelings inside, and I don't want to act on them. Certainly you don't. But there's inside, okay, where nobody knows but me, and I'm just churning inside, right? And then there's acting out, is what psychologists call the other stage, is like, then I go do it. But there's something in between the two, between inside and acting out. And that is the thing the Bible calls confession. And I don't mean confession like, sitting from somebody on your knees, and certainly with God, but not with people. But it means to take it to relationship. To take it to relationship so the inside is understood. And confession is not always the bad things we've done, Tim. And if you look at James, where it says to confess our sins, and in that way we may be healed, that the word there can mean not just bad things we've done, but just kind of losses. Bad things that happen. We can confess our hurts too. We confess our weaknesses. We can confess things that people did against us, because confession just means to tell the truth. So I'm broadening sometimes our understanding of confess to mean, I got to get it out of me. I don't want to act it out, but I've got to connect it. That's what confession means. I would want you to find 3 people. In my book, People Feel, we call it a life team of safe people, and say, I've got to tell you not only the facts of what my wife has done, but I've got to tell you what it's doing to me inside. And I would want you to use the emotions. In the book, I have a list of categorized of 100 emotions in 10 categories, and one of those is anger. There's like 10 words that can be very, 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 very intense, as well as just mild frustration. But sometimes guys need a better menu for putting words on emotions. And I want you to tell somebody those emotions, not just the facts of what happened, but the emotions. And I want you to feel emotions with them. And that will begin to decrease the level of revenge you feel. But the second thing is, I don't know how much time I spent on the video on this, but once we realize that revenge doesn't help us, kind of the final cure for revenge, once we do the connection piece, is grief, forgiveness and grief, where we let go and we say, they hurt me a lot. It's a fact. And I'm so sad about it. And I'm not going to condemn her, because I don't have the right to condemn anybody. But there's something I wanted. I wanted a happy marriage. I wanted to have a forever partner, and I don't. And I've been wounded deeply, and I'm canceling the debt against her, and I'm going to go through a grief process. People that get stuck in revenge often have a lot of trouble saying that, because they're still kind of stuck they feel helpless. The anger has nowhere to go, and anger helps us not feel helpless. Grief says, I am helpless. I can't go fix this. I wanted something deeply, and I got to let it go. And grief will heal that. You know, when Jesus was coming in the Palm Day, and he looked at Jerusalem, he said, Jerusalem, I wish I could have put you under my wings like a hen does her chicks, but you wouldn't do it. And he was sad. And so, Tim, I think that's the final. I gave you the first step, which is you said inside. We don't want you to act out, but in the middle is relationship of confession and support, and then beginning the grief process. That's where I'd go. And it's just kind of, you never know how these things go. But today I've talked more about grief than I usually do. So you might want to kind of get a copy of this and listen to it. But when Henry Cloud and I wrote our book, How People Grow, we talk about how grief is the pain that solves most other pains. And we firmly believe that. Grief is the pain. It's painful, but it solves most other pains, because it makes you stop screaming at the wind. It makes you stop protesting that which you cannot have. It makes you stop spending energy on something you can't control, and allows you to say, I'm sad. I can't have this. I needed it. I want it. I can't have it. And guess what happens? Once you finish the crying and the comfort and the rebuilding and the getting the needs met somewhere else, then you get a life, a new life. Maybe without her, because she's chosen the way she's chosen. And then you find new love, new friends, new activities. It's the pain that solves most other pains. So best wishes, Tim.
Okay, John, your next question comes from Julie out of Denver, Colorado. And she says, I was watching last week, and I'm going to try and call in again, I promise, sometime. But I looked up the information about your workshop that you are going to be doing with Henry. And the reason that I did that is because I have a very difficult time controlling my own boundaries, or maybe not controlling them. She wrote a paragraph, so I'm paraphrasing here. She says, keeping them solid at all times. I grew up in a home that was extremely unhealthy and tumultuous relationships, lots of being reactive to things instead of knowing the right way to handle things. The reason that I'd like to come to the workshop is so that I can maybe apply these things physically in my life, because as many of your books as I've read, I am unable to physically do this. I allow people to constantly run over me. And her question is, would it be beneficial to go through something intensive like the week-long workshop to get these skills, since I am not taking them in just through reading the material?
Right, Julie, it's a great question. And the answer is, I mean, that's kind of why an intensive program like we've got, the Ultimate Leadership Workshops, the growth workshops in Southern California are that. Look at it this way. Every problem, I think, has 4 levels of intensity. One is 0. I don't have a problem. I'm happy. And that, sometimes we can have, it's a great day, a great year. That's great. That's a 0. A 1 is we've got a mild problem in relationship, problem in our emotional development, problem in our career, our family development. There's 0, which, let's say normal. There's normal. I don't like to say normal because everybody goes, normal's kind of screwed up. I'll just say no problem. There's no, there's mild, there's moderate, there's severe. And you read a book and you read and you go, oh, there's the 3 keys, and you fix it and you put the book away, then you had a mild problem, right? But if moderate and severe, because of, honestly, the background you just gave us was very, very, very telling. If there's any place where your boundaries can get wrecked, it's in chaotic and unpredictable environments, because you don't know when to say no, and if something good's going to happen or somebody's going to scream at you. I mean, chaos and mixed messages, they just, how do I say it? They devastate the ability of a person to hold on to themselves. They're worried about if they're doing the wrong thing, or if somebody's going to love them, or if there'll be a bad person to do this, or if there's going to be a catastrophe. So they don't trust their boundaries at all, and they don't have any practice with it. I mean, your background is just, I felt bad for you, because it's kind of a devastating, arrested development boundary situation. I'm not surprised at all, Julie, by what you say is happening in today's life. So no, you're right. Books aren't enough for this kind of situation. The reason for intensives is they allow you to concentrate on a focused environment. I mean, you can like go to Disneyland or the beach, after you finish your day with us. But every day is going to be concentrated on Julie, with a bunch of people who are supportive and with professionals who are helpful. It's just sort of like going into, when I've had to have physical therapy, the first session's a long one because they're just doing everything. I come away tired, but I've got a lot of good help and I'm going to go back for maintenance. It's the same thing. You can focus on this. Think about it for this way. You had no boundaries. You weren't given the gift of boundaries. You now have boundaries problem in the present. What's the best boundary you can give yourself is to be a little bit selfish and say, I'll spend a few days in California getting this done. My first boundary, and I'm going to stick to it. Meaning, I'm going to get there, I'm going to register, I'm going to get on the plane, I'm going to get there, I'm going to show up, I'm going to get in the group, I'm going to hear Cloud and Townsend do whatever they do. That's your first boundary. But if you go and that's the issue, it will not be your last boundary. You'll come away with a lot more strength. So good luck with that. Hope to see you.
You have some people asking about it in the comments. And so I guess we didn't really say. They're asking if it's through the Institute, and no, that is through Growth Skills.
Yeah, there's sister organizations. There's the Townsend Institute, where you can get your grad degree online to have your future. Then there's the Growth Skills Workshop, which is a 1-week intensive, and where you get a lot of stuff at one time, kind of a microwave. And then there's Townsend Leadership Program. If you're a leader, it's a 1 year at a time program. We take you through with a team every month. So that's depending on, they're all on the website, but it depends on your situation. Those 3 sisters relate very well.
Okay.
I have 3 sisters. Kind of weird.
Kind of.
Anyway.
It's all right. You have time for one more question. And this is coming from AJ on your Facebook Live. And she is saying, we're asking, what is the main foundation of a long distance relationship to work? And what is detachment yet staying in love in your perspective?
So with 1 minute to go, AJ's asking me like the Encyclopedia Wiki question, right? All right. I want to do a good job. Repeat it, please.
Okay. What is the main foundation of a long distance relationship to be able to work? And what is detachment yet staying in love in your perspective?
All right. The number one thing would be it's a numbers game. Your first part of the question is a numbers game, meaning time. As much time as you can spend in quality time with Zoom and phone to make up for the lost time of face-to-face. But as many as you can afford of visits back and forth. Nothing increases love without attachment. And the attachment can be remote attachment. But if it's remote and you really want this thing to work, then spend as much time and money commitment as you can have on lots of Zoom, lots of fun, as many plane trips as possible. And I already forgot the second one. What was that again, Stacy?
Okay,
Stacey?
what is your perspective on detachment versus staying in love?
What's my perspective? Well,
Or it
one's
says,
bad, one's
what
one's
is-
good.
It says, what is detachment yet staying in love in your perspective? Like how to detach yet also still in love with.
Oh, yeah, I'd say that that's an oxymoron. It's impossible. I think we've got a problem in terminology and semantics here. I would say being separate and staying in love is very, very good, but detachment is the anti of love. So if you can be separate and connect, but say, I've still got my choices, you've got your choices, my difference is your difference, we respect your difference, we can be hugely, insanely in love. But to detach means I'm shutting down the love. Therefore, it can't exist. So more of a semantic issue.
That's right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you to all the Marys. It was Mary having you. But seriously, a lot of the grief happened, and I would never say just grief for the sake of it. But if you get hold of it and get vulnerable with it, get with the right people, you will find energy, creativity, focus, and a more positive mood if you'll do it right. It's really that important. So we wish you guys well, and have a good week. See you next week.